Imagine you just sailed for months across open ocean with basically zero idea what you're going to find when you hit land. You finally step onto this weird volcanic island, and the first thing that happens is a giant lizard just doesn't move. You walk right up to it. You could, if you wanted to, poke it with a stick. It just blinks at you like you're mildly interesting weather. This actually happened. The guy was Charles Darwin. The island was the Galápagos, and the year was 1835. He wrote that he could just walk up and shove a hawk off a branch with the barrel of his gun. He picked up marine iguanas and threw them into the ocean to watch them swim away in fear. And instead, they just swam back to the exact same rock and climbed out again, completely unbothered, like he was a slightly annoying wave. This should be terrifying, honestly. Almost every other animal on Earth that sees something big and unfamiliar runs. That instinct is supposed to be the most basic, non-negotiable survival setting there is. So why did an entire island of animals just not have it installed? And once you start pulling on that thread, it leads somewhere way darker and way more interesting than the animals were just dumb. Let's start with the actual mechanism, because it's not magic and it's not stupidity. It's economics. Brutal, evolutionary economics. Being scared of things all the time is expensive. Like, genuinely costs energy and time expensive. Every second an animal spends scanning the horizon, staying tense, keeping its distance from anything new, is a second it's not eating, resting, or making babies. A biologist named Daniel Blumstein has spent a lot of his career studying exactly this trade-off, and the conclusion is pretty stark. If a population of animals lives somewhere with zero actual predators for enough generations, that fear response doesn't just sit there unused like a backup generator. It actively gets selected against. The individuals who waste less energy being jumpy get to spend more energy surviving and reproducing instead. Multiply that by a few thousand generations, and the fear just evaporates. There's literally a term for this: predator naiveté. Remove the threat, and eventually the fear goes with it, like a muscle that just atrophies because nobody's using it.
This explains the Galápagos almost perfectly. Those islands never had big land predators, not ever. So a marine iguana looking at Darwin had nothing in its evolutionary memory telling it that a large bipedal creature was dangerous, because nothing like that had ever hurt its ancestors. The fear had nothing to push against, so there was nothing there to push. Okay, so that's a cute Galápagos story, but here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable, because this exact same mechanism is also the reason one of history's most famous extinct birds doesn't exist anymore: the dodo. You know the dodo as the punchline, right? Big dumb bird, walked up to sailors, got clubbed. Stupidest animal that ever lived, basically asked to go extinct. Except that story is mostly wrong, and the real version is way more interesting. The dodo evolved on Mauritius, an island that, like the Galápagos, had no predators worth fearing for an extremely long time. So when sailors finally showed up in the late 1500s, dodos reportedly walked toward the camps out of curiosity instead of running away. Classic predator naivete. But here's the twist nobody tells you. Direct hunting by sailors probably wasn't even the main thing that wiped them out. The real damage came from what those ships were carrying. Rats, pigs, monkeys, animals that jumped ship and found dodo nests, which held exactly one egg at a time, completely undefended. A bird with zero instinct to guard against a sharp-toothed mammal sniffing around its nest had literally no behavioral response programmed in for that. Within about a century of first contact, they were gone. Not because they were stupid, because the fear they needed simply never had a reason to exist before. And there's an even smaller, even sadder version of this same exact story on a tiny island called Stevens Island off New Zealand. You've probably heard the urban legend version. One lighthouse keeper's cat single-handedly wiped out an entire species of bird in the 1890s. One cat, one extinction. Kind of a darkly funny historical footnote. The real version, once researchers actually dug back through the old records, is messier. That cat was likely already pregnant when she arrived. What actually drove the Stevens Island wren extinct wasn't one cat. It was the rapidly multiplying colony of feral cats she founded, hunting a tiny flightless bird that had spent its entire evolutionary history with zero mammal predators around. Same exact pattern. No fear calibrated, no defense, gone almost instantly. So here's the uncomfortable thread connecting all three of these. Darwin's fearless hawk, the trusting dodo, the doomed little wren. In every single case, the thing that looks like peace, like trust, like some kind of innocent harmony with nature, is actually just an absence, a debt that's never been called in yet. Think about that for a second, because it flips the whole, "Aw, the animal isn't scared of me" feeling on its head. That animal isn't calm because it's decided you're safe. It's calm because nothing in its entire ancestral history has ever given it a reason to consider that you might not be. It's not bravery. It's not friendliness. It's just a blank space where fear should be, sitting there completely undefended, waiting for the first thing smart enough or hungry enough to take advantage of it. And once you see that pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. Pretty much any time humans show up on an island that's been isolated for long enough, the story rhymes. Sometimes it's birds. Sometimes it's giant tortoises that got hunted by the literal boatload because they had no idea a human with a knife was a threat worth running from. Sometimes it's seals that'll let you walk right up and touch them, like the entire concept of land predator never made it onto their radar. There's actually a flip side worth mentioning here too, because it shows the mechanism works in reverse just as fast. Animals that do live around humans, even briefly, can relearn fear shockingly quickly. A population of animals that gets hunted hard for even a few generations will start showing way more wariness, way more flight distance, way more jumpiness around anything human-shaped. The fear isn't gone forever. It's just a setting that gets dialed up or down depending entirely on whether the cost of being scared is currently worth paying. Which honestly says something kind of bleak about how thin the line really is between an animal trusting you completely and an animal being terrified of you. It's not really about you at all. It's about whatever showed up before you and what it did when it got there. So next time you see one of those videos, a seal nuzzling a diver, an iguana sunbathing 2 feet from a tourist, a bird landing on someone's outstretched hand without a second thought, it's easy to read that as some kind of magical interspecies trust. And maybe, in the moment, it kind of is. But underneath it is something a little colder. That animal isn't reading the situation and deciding you're harmless. It literally doesn't have the software installed to read the situation at all. It's running on a version of reality where creatures that look like you have simply never been a threat. Which is a genuinely beautiful thing, right up until the day something arrives, that is.